Welcome, YouTube. This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review Kanye West's third album, Graduation. Now, this closed off the Education trilogy from Kanye West, which actually was going to be a tetralogy, which was going to include the fourth album, Good Ass Job, but there was a change of plans that kind of happened. We wound up getting 808s and Heartbreak instead. But the concept behind this was a saga of Kanye West that kicked off with the College Dropout and then continued with Late Registration. Now, I reviewed College Dropout. That was like day one. That was the second review I think I did on this channel, and then I reviewed Late Registration back in August. But I've been kind of on a Kanye West spree, and I wanted to get some more of these. But this is a particularly stellar album, I would have to say, by Kanye West. I mean, I don't I don't want to say like I enjoy it haphazardly as much as I did, but I feel like I'm kind of more in tune with like the more kind of litty and kind of more contemporary songs this time around compared to in the past when I listened to this. And I feel like this is definitely a gem of a project, but I kind of question about the concept behind it. I question the concept behind it because there's some themes on here. There's definitely a lot of earnest and feel good type vibes. Like if you're definitely looking for something like the title of this album implies graduation. It has a lot of moments that are intended for bravado, feel good, and just overall, maybe not quite hammy, but pretty close to just an overall kind of flabbergasting kind of feeling as far as like completion. And this is kind of interesting to get that for Kanye West to do that quite as early on in his career, because you would think that some of the feelings that Kanye was kind of conveying and actually doing a pretty rousing idea of being able to pull off are effects and type things like songs like Everything I Am and Good Life and like Good Morning, and some of those moments would feel like they'd be on like a person's fifth, sixth, or seventh album more so than just on their third. And this kind of, I think the concept behind it, dealing with the concept of graduation, maintaining that kind of theme towards it, has something to do with it. But it's just a very effectual project that had some strong themes, even if the album to me is kind of haphazard. Now, comparing this to Curtis that dropped the same day, I do have to say in the mixture, there's a lot of people, like, I feel like for the most part, there are a lot of folks, especially like critics around here, that feel like Graduation is the better album than Curtis. But I would have to say I have to stick with saying I like Curtis more. Like, there are some moments that only Graduation has, and I kind of feel like the concept behind it, songs like Stronger, songs like Flashing Lights, songs like Homecoming, songs like Can't Tell Me Nothing. The singles are all excellent, and I probably said the singles overall probably have like a more pronounced feeling than Curtis, but I feel like Curtis probably wins in terms of contemporariness and just overall hit for hit for hit for hit. I mean, the singles are better on Graduation. It has a number one in Stronger. It has a top 10 single in Good Life. It has a top 20 single in Flashing Lights. It has a nice roundabout fifth single, which Homecoming did better than 50 Cent's I'll Still Kill. And I feel like the bravado behind Can't Tell Me Nothing is pretty strong. It's definitely Kanye on his swag shit, and it kind of gets him back to that and kind of the emphasis, the sort of stuff that was kind of typical of 2007. It's just interesting because DJ Toomp produced this beat, and he was kind of flying high with songs he did for T.I. and Young Dro and those type people. So that's kind of the thing. But yeah, we'll go ahead and talk about some of these singles to kind of get into that. Just to kind of talk, and I'll start hamming this project together, because otherwise this is going to be like a 25-minute review. But the first single is Can't Tell Me Nothing, and this single, like I said, is produced by DJ Toomp. Just has like an emphasis. Jeezy's kind of on here. Originally, this was going to be a Jeezy song, but Kanye wanted it pretty badly and got it. But I just feel it's like a real floaty kind of song. This kind of feels different from most Kanye songs. It just barely feels like a Kanye West song. It feels like something that Rick Ross, Jeezy, or like some ATL rapper would do, something like that. It just really kind of has like a lot of dirty South kind of feel towards it. I really like the hook. I really like the la 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 lyrics and kind of like the chorus and that type of stuff. There's just a lot of good moments about this, but it's kind of like it's typical of Kanye. It's not quite as like like emphasized as he was kind of feeling on like Diamonds from Sierra Leone, but I do like the concept. It's just a little bit more of Kanye West at bay, and I kind of miss like the Kanye that just was a lot more kind of cocksure and kind of arrogant. It just feels like he kind of is kind of being an asshole, but I don't feel like he's so much as being an ass as much as he's being an arse, if you get that concept, where it's just not, I mean, he toned it down. Maybe people complained about that too much. I mean, he had more ego on Late Registration than he did on College Dropout, but it seems like he kind of narrowed it back to College Dropout days on at least on Can't Tell Me Nothing. I mean, it's kind of like prideful, but it's not nearly what Kanye was before. And then the second single is Stronger, and this is a really excellent song. I love that he hooked up with Daft Punk and brought them back after really they only do like an album a decade. They're pretty infrequent, but they have some really good stuff, and they're definitely electronic masters and that type of stuff. The hook is brilliant. It's just an overall emphasized song. It's just a one of these feel good songs that just most people when they listen to this are going to feel really good upon hearing it. It just has that kind of emphasis. Probably one of Kanye West's best songs. Definitely is a summer song. Definitely is just kind of a carefree and just cool sounding kind of song that just is one of the more stylish songs. Like I've talked in the past about how Kanye West, the song I normally hear all the time by Kanye is Gold Digger, but this is definitely a song I'd like to hear more because this hit number one. This was just poignant timing. This really kind of this is one of the best times to be a Kanye West fan was when this song came out. It just had a lot of strong emphasis and deserves to hit number one. It's just a quality song. The third single was Good Life, and this had T-Pain. This was a great follow up. This was kind of living up the emphasis where I think people were kind of saying, okay, I think he's got 50 Cent beat between the Good Life and Flashing Lights to some of these singles, or just kind of showcasing the emphasis that maybe Graduation was the better album. This definitely, I want to say that I know it was definitely a top 10 single. I don't know if it was a top 5, but it was pretty close. It definitely charted really high. T-Pain does an excellent job on the hook. And yeah, T Pain does an excellent job on the hook. It's just another good kind of feel good and just kind of bravado induced kind of song. Just a lot more mellow, just kind of concentrated on just kicking back and like fraternizing and kind of just like ruminating a little bit in like a social kind of way. It's just about living it up and kind of the concept of what happens as the graduation kind of happens and that type of stuff. And it's just an overall good song. I definitely like the T-Pain hook, and there's just a lot of good moments about it. It's a song that's been a while since I've listened to, but I definitely feel like it's not quite as hit potential is stronger, but it's definitely a pretty solitary and definitely good third single that proved that Kanye is going to be around for a while on this album, and it did well. And Flashing Lights is the fourth single. I really like this song. This is probably the song I liked the best back in the day from the singles, at least. I mean, Stronger was good, but I feel like Flashing Lights is extremely good. I feel like the hook is amazing on here. It's definitely a pretty litty and just club oriented type song. Kanye needed a single like this on Late Registration and The College Dropout. It just feels like Kanye is a little bit more flashy this time around, a little bit more indulgent, and not quite as prideful. It just feels like Kanye is just kind of relaxed and just carefree and just kind of comfortable. It's just odd how comfortable Kanye West kind of is. He's not like the normal maniacal and kind of like bipolar Kanye West. It's just so odd how tempered that Kanye was on this album. I think that's kind of why so many people feel like Kanye started to falter. It's because you look at these songs, I mean, really, he kept his ego completely in check on this album. Can't Tell Me Nothing was probably the wildest of the singles in terms of like Kanye's normal emphasis. I mean, he was being cocksure on Stronger, but it was just more of a feel good kind of romp and stomp more so than anything else. But Flashing Lights is just kind of a night kind of weekend kind of club bop that just works extremely well, especially the hook. And then the fifth single was Homecoming. This is probably the single I like the least. I think I probably have to say most people probably feel the same way. It's just about kind of coming back to your hometown and that type of stuff, and kind of the emphasis of touching base and that kind of concept. I think within the theme of graduation, if you do leave town and you come back to your hometown or where you normally reside, and just that kind of feeling of touching base and that type of stuff is just kind of an emphasis. Kanye West puts his take on that. It's interesting enough, and I kind of feel like to me this is just kind of like Walden Books and kind of like Barnes and Noble kind of music. It just has a real relaxed. Chris Martin from Coldplay is on here. This has a real kind of sophisticated, elegant kind of feel towards it. It's just kind of not typical of most rap songs, I'd have to say. I haven't really heard many songs in this kind of format, but it's interesting enough. I do like the fact that this was the fifth single. It's definitely pretty homely for being the fifth single, but it just kind of has like, it's not club oriented, not like weekend oriented, and really not like party oriented, but it still does kind of have a social feeling to it. It's just more of like a bookstore and kind of more coffee shop kind of feel towards it, but it's pretty good. And yeah, I just would have to say there is a lot that Wikipedia had to write about graduation compared to there's a lot that Wikipedia had to write about graduation compared to Curtis, and I feel like there's just like, this is a pretty solitary album. Like, I'll definitely say I'm gonna go ahead and list the I guess I'll yeah, the 7 songs out of 13, but I think there's actually 14 on the Spotify and iTunes edition. There's 14 songs. I'm gonna go ahead and kind of, so the 7 songs out of 13 or 14 I recommend would be Flashing Lights, Can't Tell Me Nothing, Drunken Hot Girls, Stronger, Good Life, Barry Bonds, and Good Morning. So basically most of like the Liddy moments, I kind of feel like there's particularly like Kanye West is not shy about going out and stepping out a bit. I mean, he kind of tempers them or is kind of a little bit more, but he steps out a little bit more than he did on Late Registration. Like, I feel like beyond like Crack Music and Gold Digger and maybe like 1 or 2 other records off of Late Registration, he just did not step out as much. But I feel like I'm going to say that Late Registration was definitely a lot more peppy and preppy. Definitely kind of a lot more of a prep album. But now Kanye just feels more sophisticated and just kind of like, I almost want to say like kind of like John Legend, Common type, kind of more sophistication, just kind of in a book smart kind of way, but then not quite. I mean, Kanye is still kind of like, it's book smart, but it's not douchish. I just want to kind of say that it's not like Kanye is someone who's going to get bruised if you like flick his hand or something like that, just something like that. It just kind of has a lot more where Kanye is just, more of a sophisticated kind of adult on this project. And it just kind of is interesting kind of get that, because I feel like some of the more litty kind of club bops like Barry Bonds and Drunken Hot Girls, Flashing Lights, these are all like really kind of elegant stepping out kind of moments that I feel like have a lot more punch and emphasis than the stuff on Late Registration or College Dropout. It's just, Kanye really learned to kind of step out and have more of a more elegant and kind of pronounced time. And it's just it's definitely interesting. It's definitely kind of interesting to see these kind of moments and enjoy them and that type of stuff. It definitely has like a particular weekend kind of feel towards it. And I feel like particularly Drunken Hot Girls, it really just feels like you're kind of buzzed and drunk yourself listening upon it, because it's just not a very typical kind of pronunciation of a song. I would definitely have to say the whole time it just feels like a kind of carrying on this kind of night that kind of deals with swerving and that type of stuff and having that sort of emphasis. And Flashing Lights, a nice kind of woozy club bop, and Barry Bonds is kind of like a night venue kind of oriented one. I just feel like that could probably be played at a sports bar or a nightclub, something like that. But a particularly good song that I feel like for the morning time is Good Morning. This one is just a really kind of feel good. Like, Kanye aimed for like 3 feel good songs in a row with Good Morning, Champion, and Stronger. And I definitely feel like Champion didn't quite do it as well for me. That the like Champion didn't quite have as catchy a beat as Good Morning, but just the kind of hums and that type of stuff in the chorus and Good Morning really make it kind of like a blushingly good, feel good kind of anthem in there. And it just is a nice, I mean, even if it's not intended, even if it's like coffee shop and breakfast at McDonald's and just places like that in the morning, just breakfast venues and that type of stuff, going to like Starbucks and some of that stuff, I really feel like it still kind of has the emphasis of just being a nice kind of uppity, getting to work kind of feel or whatever type feel starting your day. And this has a nice emphasis, even despite the fact that it doesn't have like drinks and stuff like that in mind. Yeah, I really like the kind of overcast kind of night venue emphasis of Barry Bonds. Like, I already talked about the singles, so minus like the 5 singles, I'm gonna go ahead and throw Homecoming on here because I forgot to do that. So I guess there were 8 songs. I guess really that there were 8 songs. I'm gonna say that like Homecoming is kind of. I'll go ahead and give Kanye Homecoming. I almost want to say it's an almost song, but to kind of scratch what I said like a few minutes ago, and to say the 8 songs I recommend out of 13 or 14 would be Flashing Lights, Can't Tell Me Nothing, Drunken Hot Girls, Stronger, Good Life, Barry Bonds, Good Morning, and Homecoming. So the 5 singles plus Barry Bonds, Drunken Hot Girls, and Good Morning. So yeah, that's kind of that. Those are the only 3 songs I wound up liking out of the rest of the project, minus the 5 singles. But the 5 singles are great in kind of varied formats. I definitely feel like they have emphasis, like Flashing Lights, kind of is the nice stepping out one. Stronger is the feel good one. It's a real strong emphasis. Good Life is kind of like a woozy, kind of almost mellow, kind of like social kind of cut, not quite club but social. And then Can't Tell Me Nothing is the swaggering kind of kickoff introduction kind of single and that type of stuff. And Homecoming is kind of like a touch bass. That just kind of happens to be the thing. To talk about some of the songs I didn't like I kind of felt like the energy got a little bit hammy on Big Brother and Good Night and The Glory and Everything I Am. Like some of these are just really kind of emphasizing just the process. Like I really feel like Everything I Am was surprising just because the level of reflection in that song, and just some of these, like the songs towards the end just really have a more kind of completionary type task towards it. Just the concept of completing the task and just kind of, more retirement kind of in mind, and maybe not retirement from Kanye West, but just kind of like the concept of graduation, which is just kind of completion. And this is kind of it's mature in that sense and kind of having that context, but I feel like the kind of hamminess of like those sorts of ceremonies and graduation type themes is kind of overcast, and if you're not looking specifically for that kind of energy, it downplays the album somewhat, because there's a lot of the kind of hammy graduation type ceremonious type attitude on here. I mean, you can find some bops to kind of slink to, like Drunken Hot Girls and Barry Bonds, but there's a lot of like Champion does that, The Glory does that, Homecoming does that, Big Brother does that, Good Night does that, and even Good Morning does that. So it's about half the album that kind of has these flabbergastingly like kind of hammy, kind of really kind of chipper, kind of feel good type songs and that type stuff. And it's just kind of like the album is kind of almost compromised in terms of making sure it attains that attitude as far as trying to have that sort of ceremonious completion type thing. And it's like it's not bad in a sense of doing that, but it's just that a lot of the album is dedicated to it. And it's like I know that the concept of graduation is kind of there, but it's just kind of strong. So, but there is some good songs to be found. Like Lil Wayne did a great job on Barry Bonds. He had a nice verse. He's the only real rapper that shows up on here at all. Like you get Dwale, Chris Martin, and T-Pain that help on the hooks, but there's really not any other rappers. Like I want to say that Mos Def might do a little bit of bars in here, but really it's basically Kanye by himself, apart from Lil Wayne doing a very small verse at the end of Barry Bonds. So it's just kind of, but there are some great moments. I definitely like when Kanye steps out and kind of indulges, because like I said, he's very comfortable on this album. He's very comfortable on this album, tones down his ego, and just does not have, like, this is a completely healthy Kanye West that just does not have any problems whatsoever in the fashion of his mind. Like the bipolarness is kept intact. It doesn't feel like Kanye's on his meds, and he's just completely like just a dominant rapper around that time. I mean, Kanye was one of the most dominant rappers of 2007, 2008 time period, and it's just kind of like I just would have to say that. I mean, it's just odd. I mean, it just like we look at Kanye from like 2016 or 2020 or 2022, and it's like that's not. I mean, these are two different Kanye West that you kind of look at here, but that's just kind of the emphasis. So me liking, me liking 8 songs out of 13. I'm gonna give this album like a 6.75 out of 10. I really feel like, well, 8 out of 13. I'll give it a 7. I'm gonna give Kanye West's Graduation a 7 out of 10, because really 8 out of 14 if you count Good Night on there, which is the extra bonus track. I really feel like that's, approximately 2/3 or 3/4 of the problem. Well, not quite 3/4, just kind of in between. It's maybe like 3/5 of the project, something like that. So 8 out of 14 is kind of a little bit more than half, but not enough to really say that it's a predominant kind of album and that sort of thing. So I just would have to say 7 out of 10. The social score I will give an 8.5 out of 10 because the singles were outstanding. I would have, like, I don't know. I guess I don't know. Maybe I'll even give the social score a 9 because there are some great moments on here for stepping out. I mean, really, I was surprised at like Kanye being able to do that. I would have liked maybe one or two more social songs, kind of like Barry Bonds and Drunken Hot Girls. But I definitely kind of feel like, there's a lot of stepping out moments, and this is a pretty popular album. I mean, it has the emphasis, has a good energy, good attitude, that type of stuff. So 9 social score, 5 singles. All of these really hit. There's a number one in here and a top 10 single in here on top of that. So that's kind of the concept. So 9 out of 10 social score. And in terms of the future, like Kanye dropped an album in 2022 called Donda 2. And I'm kind of looking to see what Kanye is going to do next. So apparently he's going to run for president again in 2024, but he's been kind of off and on as far as like what's been up with them, and he's just kind of sporadic. So we'll see what happens. But this is a pretty solid release. I definitely feel like I mean, to credit Kanye on this, there's definitely a lot of fun moments to kind of talk about here.